Welcome into the Sources A podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Sean Smith. Sean, how the heck are you?
I'm fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. How are you?
I just wanted to check the time here, 8:06 for our Club Blue comment of the day. Somebody on Twitter, today's Tyrone Slothrop says 8:30 it is. See you then. Gotcha, bud. Thank you. Shout out to our friends at Club Blue. So we're going to start our show like all shows, talking about football, because it's exactly what, sources say. That's what we do around here. We just talk, the gridiron, it's what we do. I guess because it is the biggest news of this current cycle and how it impacts, the biggest news that kind of led into the weekend, how those two things overlap and eventually gets us to the Kentucky basketball conversation. We got to start with the big dog. Your reaction, Sean Smith, to Vince Marrow after 12 years turning his back on the University of Kentucky to not just go to not go to Michigan, not go to Michigan State, not take a head coaching job at Akron, not going back home to Youngstown. He is going down I-64 West and taking the GM job at the University of Louisville. Very weird. How do you feel?
Well, I was coaching summer basketball last night, and I found out after one of our games, somebody's like, "Hey, can you believe about Vince?" And I'm like, "Vince," and then they're like, "Marrow left Kentucky. He's going to Louisville." So I'm finding out from a sources say listener actually that this happened. So it's one of those. It's hard to kind of wrap your mind around, right? Because it's something that I just never at any point saw coming. Because I don't know, when you're talking about assistant coaches having an impact on a program, any program for that matter, in the school's history, but on the state, the fan base, how beloved. It's one of those that I never saw him wearing that color. If it's that color, it wasn't going to be Louisville red. So that's the part that's like, man, are you sure that this is what's happening? But a little stunned, I guess, just by the choice, because I felt like obviously there's been other opportunities to leave Kentucky, but to get to this point and Mark Stoops loses his right hand man, it just kind of adds to just how it has been for the last couple of years on that side of things.
Yeah, I got a phone call week and a half ago, I believe, that said, U of L administration is talking pretty definitively that Vince Marrow is a card. Like, he's taking the GM job. It's done. They're just finalizing the details. There's nothing left to talk about. And it was so impassing that it kind of just felt like the next big dog is interviewing with fill in the blank school as a head coach, as a GM, as a recruiting court, whatever. He's going back to the NFL, like whatever. Like we have 45 of these conversations a year. So how seriously, it's the boy who cried wolf. How seriously do you take a Vince Marrow takes X job ever? So when I heard that, it was like, yeah, I'll see it when I believe it. And then it was just so KSR that we are live yesterday doing our happy hour show. And, you can see, if you rewatch the video, you can see my eyes. Tyler's talking, and, you're kind of doing a bunch of things at once, and you're scrolling, you hit refresh, and you see it, and you can see my eyes kind of go like, whoa, okay, how my brain can't process this. And then I read the tweet and go, okay, that's got to be a troll account. So you can see my eyes go back up to look at the account and go, wait, Pete Thamel. No way. It's got to be a troll account. You click on that and then you go, oh, holy crap. It's happening. I can't believe that this is actually happening. So boy who cried wolf situation when it finally happened. I did not believe it. And it doesn't surprise me. Louisville doesn't surprise me. I know his relationship with Jeff Brom. None of it surprises me, because nothing with Kentucky football surprises me. It does just have that lame duck feel to it, where Vince is kind of jumping off a sinking ship, and it sucks. You don't want to be in this position. I, have always been a Vince fan. I've always been a Mark Stoops fan. It just does kind of have that feeling, Sean, that the reality is what it is, and we now kind of have to face the music this upcoming season where you're getting an apathetic fan base that is totally bought out, and just kind of having to see what a buyout would then look like, and how that, if that's even a conversation, what a turnaround would look like, what would be the buy back in for the fan base, and if there is a, hey, if they win 6 games, does that kind of buy him another season to turn it around? What does that look like now? Those are unfortunately the hard questions that we have to answer. And it does just truly overlap kind of perfectly with the conversation that we kind of, why we are doing this show right now. And that is kind of the House settlement passing, and how schools as of July 1st will be able to pay student athletes directly for the first time in college athletics history. Pay for play is going away with the wild, wild west and how we've seen it over the last several years. And, this is the first time we're getting structure. This is the first time that we're getting some semblance of, kind of reining things in, and getting some type of, structure with paying student athletes. And, obviously the back pay dating back to 2016, that's obviously a different thing, but we're going to focus on kind of the now and what it means for, moving forward. So that news dump, Sean, late Friday night, 9:18, I think is when it was officially passed. And of course, we're at Malachi's game for the Kentucky Indiana All-Star game, and we're like, go figure, because I'm with Zach. Zach has the night shift, so he's like, wow, I'm gonna have to drop what I'm doing right now and write about the biggest story in the history of college sports while I'm at an All-Star game, about to interview Malachi, all that stuff. So it really was just like, you couldn't have timed it any worse. But it actually ended up working in Kentucky's favor, because it is a pretty important subject. But before I'll kind of get into the what it means and why in my opinion, it is a total game changer for Kentucky basketball specifically, as we move forward, just kind of your initial reaction to just the news that dropped, and how we are now approaching a brand new era of college sports as we know it.
Well, I think it's one of those things that we feel like we've been moving towards for a while, right? But we just didn't know where. Like, we knew kind of where we were headed, just didn't know how long it was going to take to get to that point. But this is obviously a significant step to a program like the University of Kentucky that, Mitch Barnhart talking about being continuing to be competitive. And like, this puts you in a position to where, as Kentucky, you can be even more competitive and continue to stay at the pinnacle of where you want to be in its sport. So one of those things that it always seems like something like that's just crazy news, that's just monumental, right? Always breaks at some of the strangest times, and it breaks late on a Friday night. And it's a big deal for college athletics, massive deal for Kentucky basketball. And then obviously on the football side, we know the revenue and things that come with that sport. But when you're talking one of the premier programs in college basketball, this is a pretty big deal for Kentucky to put itself in position to be able to do things, and with NIL that can keep them at the forefront of where they want to be as a program.
And we did get a statement from Mitch Barnhart where he said, schools will have the opportunity to not participate. That's not going to be Kentucky. We will be participating to the fullest extent, with the $20.5 million distributed year one, and then by 2035 it'll go up to $34-ish million. So Kentucky will be all in, and be a full participant. And Mitch did kind of have the verbiage of we're in this to win this. Like, we're going to maximize this, try to find advantages where we can, and not just take a blanket, here are the percentages, let's have a nice day. That kind of had a word, this is a chance for schools to be competitive and find little kind of nooks and crannies of advantages, and using it to, Kentucky's advantage against the SEC, and obviously in the, national college landscape. So some kind of big picture takeaway things with the settlement, kind of just what it means for all of sports, the roster limits. It will be 105 for football, 15 for men's and women's basketball, 34 for baseball, 28 for men's and women's soccer, 25 for softball, and 18 for volleyball. And, I think the number that we are seeing kind of nationally is kind of just the general what most teams are kind of basing off of. That doesn't necessarily apply to Kentucky, doesn't necessarily apply specifically to the SEC as of right now, but generally football, think 75% of that $20.5 million is going to be going to football, 15% going to men's basketball, 5% going to women's basketball, and then all the other sports essentially going to 5% or whatever the leftover will be in that case. So there's the conversation about Kentucky basketball, Sean, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because Kentucky basketball being such a unique in such a unique spot where I know it's kind of a taboo topic, but Kentucky basketball being a basketball school in its richest tradition and history, we like to tout ourselves as an everything school, and we're proud of all of our other schools, but Kentucky basketball versus most of the other juggernauts in other sports, it just doesn't necessarily compare. That is our calling card, while also balancing the fact that football is the revenue. Football is the money driver. Whether there's 50% of butts in seats or 100% of butts in seats at Kroger Field, it's still going to be more than a sellout at Rupp Arena any given night. So there is kind of a push and pull that comes with that, and it is kind of just something that we have to navigate. There's a report. Ross Dellinger went on Matt Jones' podcast and talked about how Kentucky basketball pushed back on the SEC's idea of that general kind of football is going to be our baby. It's going to get the 75%. Basketball is going to get 15 and what have you. It's my understanding that it's not necessarily a Kentucky basketball eats first conversation when we talk about who gets what and how the pie gets sliced. It is more of a Mitch Barnhart in the Kentucky athletic department wants year-to-year flexibility. They do not want to be hamstrung for any year, any specific sport by any. They don't want to be told where their money is going to be going. They want, if there is going to be a year that the women's basketball program needs to invest in two local recruits that are gonna two local 5-stars that are gonna cost a little bit more than what the traditional NIL budget is going to look like. We need to invest a little bit more there and maybe take away a little bit less here. That's kind of the day-by-day flexibility that Mitch Barnhart wants. So the conversation in a vacuum has been men's basketball wanting more of a cut is not necessarily the truth. It's more of the general flexibility that Kentucky wants, not with one sport is struggling and another is thriving, to be able to kind of pick and choose where to invest in. Where Kentucky basketball comes into the picture and why, in my opinion, this House settlement is an absolute total game changer for Kentucky basketball is this House settlement now forces the Wild Wild West as we have known it, the pay for play, where it is a bidding war where guys that are totally undeserving of 7-figure deals, just we got to get somebody and we have X number of dollars, we just got to pour it in. That mindset and the panic of the traditional NIL going away, that now comes back into the picture, where natural branding and things of that level are so much more important today than they were in the last 2 portal cycles. Basically, Mark Pope, when he arrived, it was we got to pay for the most expensive roster in college basketball. How can we do that? How can we get the Crafts to fund our rosters over the next, couple of cycles until there are guardrails put up? So yes, Kentucky did a tremendous job getting by with these last 2 classes. And yes, Kentucky does have one of the most expensive rosters in college basketball, probably the most expensive roster, but it is totally unsustainable long-term to expect that these donors are going to come out every single year and write a blank check for you. It's just, when you look at the return of investment, Sean, what is, these guys are billionaires, not because they're dumb with their money. And yes, they enjoy being fans of these programs. And Joe Kraft, is a diehard Kentucky basketball fan. He did not get rich by being a Kentucky basketball fan. Like that's just not the reality. So there is, and that's not exclusive to Kentucky, but there is a general sense in the college landscape, talking to people all across the country, that well was going to dry up at some point. And when you set the market for X player is worth $3.5 million, when this guy makes that much in this cycle, and then the next cycle the same pot of money is gone, and they're like, we're not going to just give you as much money as you need to pay that the next guy that's worth apparently $3.5 million. We don't have that to give. And then that guy goes, well, where's my cut? That kind of thinking was just totally unsustainable, and part of why Kentucky internally was rooting for this result. They wanted Kentucky basketball to get back to being a traditional NIL where at its core, Kentucky does better than anywhere else. So it's my understanding, Sean, that how the next 5-star top 5 recruit in the country, what have you, how he is going to be an expensive, top end guy, it's not going to come necessarily from the whatever the allotment is, the 15%, which would amount to $3 million. Just call it $3 million with the rev share. Obviously you're not going to be able to fund your entire college basketball roster with the $3 million that's going to come with the rev share. But where Kentucky separates itself is the national brands. That it's my understanding that when we have these the NIL Go now, where there's going to be total transparency, and every single deal over $600 is going to have to go into, kind of the like, hey, we're going to sign off on this to make sure it's a legitimate NIL deal. The way Kentucky is going to separate itself is the national relationships with, Kobe Bryant, with TurboTax is a great example. Those are the legitimate deals that the NCAA with this NIL Go is going to be totally comfortable passing. And Kentucky's relationships with those Dick's Sporting Goods and the Nikes and the national brands is infinitely better than 95% of the other competitive schools out there. And they will set the fair market value for these student athletes. So what the guardrails are put up right now for the local car dealership that, the booster slides $1 million to give the next 5-star recruit, that is not a legitimate NIL deal in the NCAA's eyes with this new settlement. That is what they're trying to get rid of. But the national deals and the big time brands that Kentucky already has a relationship with, those are going to be universally accepted by the NCAA in this new, kind of free market accountability center, if you will. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but just kind of up to this point, Sean, just
I guess
the branding helps Kentucky in that
it,
regard.
it certainly helps Kentucky, but I think that when you're talking something like this, obviously, intelligent and smart people know how to make money, right? Like those guys that you're talking about that are donors. They didn't become rich, like you said, because they're Kentucky basketball fans. But when you're involved with something like this, it's very important, if you're Mitch Barnhart, you're the University of Kentucky Athletics Department, Jack, that you have very intelligent people around making decisions to help navigate this, right? And what are ways that best generate revenue in this era of collegiate athletics. Like you mentioned, football is always going to generate more revenue than men's basketball in any other sport, just because of the popularity of it, the number of people that go to those games, the ticket, everything that goes into a college football Saturday. It's just massive compared to any other sport. But we also know that in this state and at this university, men's basketball moves the needle more than anything. And us as writers and people in media see those numbers every single week. that's how it goes. But it's going to be interesting to kind of follow what Kentucky does with this. Not just Kentucky, but everyone facing these challenges at the same time. These programs that have been at the top. How do you stay at the top in this era of collegiate athletics? You've got to get creative. You've got to be very intelligent with the decisions that are made, and the balancing this thing out, like you said, to where if one program needs this and in this go around, then what are we doing for the next go around? And that's where the communication and the decision makings and having those people involved, Jack, that I think are very good at navigating this is going to be pretty impactful for what Kentucky is moving forward as a university and athletics department. But I would like to think that men's basketball is going to be one of the ones that can benefit most from this across the country, just because the brand is so strong. And if you didn't have the brand, you're having to be even more creative. But Kentucky's got the brand to go with it, that I think that they can be at the forefront of what this thing looks like in this new era.
In the focus will be pushed back toward the marketability and the things that Kentucky is so good at. And yes, it's so great to have the best payroll in college sports. It's a nice little ego boost and something you could pat yourself on the back for. But again, it's not sustainable, and it also takes away, the Jasper Johnsons of the world who create the KY till I die mantra totally naturally, totally organically, where that is a local kid making the most of his true name, image, and likeness, and capitalizing on the Kentucky platform for those two things to go hand in hand and skyrocket in NIL. Jasper Johnson is the perfect example of NIL when it's done properly and how good it can be. And Kentucky being able to dig back into those roots, that they really did a bang up job when NIL first kind of got rolling in 2021. They really kind of set the foundation of, hey, we can develop these relationships with these national brands, and we can help you become the face of college basketball. That's the goal. That's the whole point. And we kind of got away from that these last two cycles because it has just been a true pay for play model. Hey, agent sets the market value at this kid is worth $2 million. Are you taking it or leaving it? It's a little bit too expensive for my liking. Unfortunately, we're going to have to pass. Yep, we're game. Let's ball. Okay, well, this other school's offering X number of dollars. Can you match? We do like the opportunity at Kentucky and the platform, but the money is the money. All of those conversations kind of go away. Yes, there will continue to be cheaters. There have the cheaters from day one, cheaters during this era right now, and then there will continue to be at this point forward. But also my understanding is that the punishments that will come from these guidelines, hey, we're giving you this, we're setting up guardrails that should be accountable for everybody and beneficial for everybody. But if you go against them and you continue to cheat, we're talking postseason bans. We're talking the punishments are so much steeper now than even they were before, with an expedited kind of process where if you're punished for it, it's an immediate type of deal. So there is kind of an accountability in that regard where they you have no choice but to play within the rules. Or else the punishment is going to be steep. And that's something that Kentucky has really kind of found themselves in that window, Sean, where they can really capitalize on this in a massive way, in ways that most other programs can't. So when we talk about the rev share and what percent each sport gets, I don't think that men's basketball is going to get this dramatic raise in cut of the pie that is kind of maybe perceived nationally just because Kentucky basketball is Kentucky basketball. I do think that there is, and I think it's going to be a changing kind of year by year deal, but I do think that nobody is stupid in that building, and they all understand that football is the moneymaker. Football is where you help pay the bills, and right now it's not paying the bills enough, and next year it's certain as heck not going to pay the bills the way it needs to. But football is going to get a fair slice of the pie to remain however competitive that looks like in today's level of the SEC. But I have heard kind of some feedback that there are going to be ADs, and I do think that Mitch Barnhart is included in this, that they'll cut, we only have 100% of the pie to go through, and if you're not living up to your end of the bar, holding up your end of the bargain, we're not going to invest in you because if you're not holding up, baseball needs our attention right now. We're going to push our chips in on baseball right now, and it is going to be kind of a year by year, like, hey, you're going to be paid as one of the top dogs in college sports, no pun intended. Like, we're going to hold you accountable to that, and now we can kind of have our say so on how much we want to help you in as we distribute these rev share funds and things like that. So I think Kentucky, don't underestimate Mitch Barnhart being in every single commission conversation and being 4 or 5 steps. I mean, that the LLC that he started with this was so forward thinking that other schools that kind of teased Mitch for being like, oh, he's top button Mitch, he's 1 step behind, always 2 steps behind. They looked at that. I mean, I was at EYBL a couple weeks back talking to other coaches about it, and they were like, that's our model. We are going to be copying what Mitch Barnhart did moving forward, because that is the future. That is what, if we're going to have to find our competitive advantages where we can get them, and that is absolutely one of them. So after my conversations, I am very, very encouraged about the health of the UK athletics department just in general, but specifically as it relates to Kentucky basketball, because this show is a Kentucky basketball show. That, when you have a high dollar kid, how are we going to afford, for example, a Tyron Stokes next 2026 cycle? How can we afford that guy when it now turns into rev share versus just a true pay for play model? Kentucky is kind of excited to have those conversations because they can get back to what they were so good at beforehand, before we got to the Wild Wild West, and that is a true traditional brand and marketing value that comes with NIL.
Yeah, and you mentioned a moment ago about forward thinking, about Mitch Barnhart, and this is the time where you have to be very good at thinking in advance for what your next move is, but maybe more so move 3 and move 4 when it comes to this, right? Like, this is something that you have to be kind of receptive of this, and you want to just accept that this is what it's going to be and move forward. This is how you have to navigate college athletics now. And like, a lot of things have changed when you're talking, scholarships, and you're talking number of players on rosters, and the amount of even getting into other sports, baseball scholarships. While it's not as many players on the roster, but obviously the scholarships are no longer the low number that they were, being having to spread out. But so much is changing around college athletics that when you're talking about, men's basketball, football, and then obviously all the other sports that require attention as well. Like, this is going to be a challenging time, not just for Kentucky. It's a challenging time for anyone that's competing in college sports. But I would like to think that Kentucky has the people in place, Jack, and there's been plenty of conversations leading up to this point, that there's been forward thinking to think, okay, this is a new era. This is how we're going to navigate it to continue to be competitive. But you mentioned a moment ago, football, we're not expecting this to be a great year. And that's where, when it comes into play, that's such a giant portion of your revenue that everyone's going to want their football program to be here. But your basketball powers, your Kansas, your Kentuckys, your North Carolinas, those are the ones that they're going to have to find their own way through this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a chance for agents to actually do their job. Agents at this point just kind of became money bag throwers and handlers. Now they are going to be in charge of working out deals with these national brands and even the local brands. And you use a guy like Trent Noah, for example, where if his pro upside and from a national scale, like, he might not be, at least yet, a Nike or Dick's Sporting Goods or fill in the blank kind of top dollar market in terms of marketability, but he can be a big time local guy, a regional guy, without it just being, hey, I'm going to go shoot a car dealership commercial and make $2 million the way the cheaters have been doing it. Like, there's a way to do this organically at all level based on marketability and no matter the level of talent from top of the marketability, top 5 recruits, all the way down to the local kids just trying to get by with a couple grand here or there. So yeah, Kentucky's in a very healthy spot. We'll learn in the next, couple of weeks. Mitch Barnhart said that, in the next couple of weeks, we'll get some type of announcement to get some type of final decision on what the percentages will look like. But yeah, I'm not expecting anything kind of like, above and beyond. I think it's going to be within the normal windows that we're kind of seeing from a national scale, while also acknowledging it's going to be a year by year basis and subject to change depending on how certain programs are doing or what they need at a specific time. So it wraps up our house settlement conversation as we kind of get into how the last cycle affected and kind of built this roster as we know it right now. It was move-in week. We got to see these kids on campus for the very first time. Sean, it was really cool going to, camp season and just getting to see these kids and interact with, having them interact with younger kids and how they're built for the spotlight. And, some kids are, players are shy. They're not used to it. They're coming from, different programs or areas of the country, and this is just all brand new to them. So just kind of experience it for the very first time, I think is pretty cool. What was your take on the moving experience, seeing these guys in the videos and all those things circulating from Joe Craft Center this weekend?
It's always one of your favorite. We talked about a couple weeks ago how things kind of die down here, right? Like you get that portal wave, you get your roster set, and then you're kind of looking for that late summer into fall that we have a lot of content to start talking about, Jack. But this was always one of my favorite parts of working the beat, was just getting to go to the camp and getting to see guys experience Kentucky for the first time. And it's quick. Like, you move in and then you're in the Craft Center or Memorial, wherever you are, working a camp with kids that are idolizing you, that they just learned about you. They're just now meeting you, but you're wearing a Kentucky jersey. You're a Kentucky men's basketball player. And to see the way that those kids look up to those guys and stuff, and then to get to see Mark Pope and making a like, hey, you're going to change your socks because you're wearing red socks. Like, you can't wear red socks, like that, those things. And it's just exciting to see guys that, especially like, your Jaspers, your Malakis that know what it is. But just because you know it doesn't mean that you don't really know how you're going to feel when you get to live that moment. So getting to live that moment and see that's always a cool thing for these guys to get to. And I think it's the perfect bridge for moving in to getting that initial experience of like, hey, I'm really a part of this university and a part of this historic program and what it means to be a part of something special.
I talked to one of the staff members while I was there, and they said it's so different to pitch this on the recruiting trail, when you're talking to these kids in the portal, when you're bringing them in on visits and doing all those things. It is so different to show them videos and pictures versus the day they experience it for the first time. And you got to see it really at Malachi's, Kentucky Indiana All-Star game appearance at Lexcath on Friday night, where the team walks in and there's just like, all eyes turn their direction, and how they can kind of feel all of the eyes. And, they're at a local high school all-star game. Like, that is the lowest, like, it's a Friday night. It's not like they're at the bars or, somewhere where it's social, it's a very casual high school all-star game. And you get people immediately walking up, asking for pictures and autographs and just swarming. And you can kind of see that look of, what did I sign myself up for? That just like slight, overwhelming feel. They obviously got used to it and settled in great. They were all incredible at the camps, but it's just their first chance after move in to kind of experience BBN for the very first time. And then, at camp, it was really cool to see, Jasper just kind of embrace that, like, hey, I know I'm the local star. I know that there's so many kids that grew up in this area that want to be the next Jasper Johnson. And he did such a great job with that. Jaden Quaintance, I think there is he's so young. He was the youngest player in college basketball last year and continues to have just a very young approach. And the way fans were around him and how he interacted with him like he's a young kid himself, I thought that was just kind of a really cool dynamic. And again, I don't think we can stress it enough. He looked very good. He looked healthy. He was moving great. And a one-on-one game against an 8-year-old means absolutely nothing for what I feel about him long term and how good he's going to be at Kentucky. But he was healthy enough to play a one-on-one game against an 8-year-old at camp. I'll take it at this stage. He was moving around great, loose jogging, kind of comfortable getting shots up. He was fine. He looked exactly where you want to be for a kid that's going to be playing here in a couple of months, coming off a torn ACL. So the camp season is always a very cool kind of first test to see how these guys handle the spotlight. And I think they passed it in flying colors. Flying colors.
It's a good icebreaker, right? To get those guys there and get them acclimated to the University of Kentucky and getting to see these guys and what this roster is going to be. And it's a good bonding experience, I think, for the team as well, that they get to go out and interact with the BBN and parents and kids and the people that are going to be cheering for them in the seats at Rupp Arena, come up and show out for these camps. And it's always been a hit, regardless of whether it's been Cal, Mark Pope, whoever it is that's leading the charge of these camps. It's always a very popular time the first couple of weeks of June when they start these. So it's cool to see all the guys there and together and experiencing how special it is to be a part of Big Blue Nation.
Jaden, obviously, one of the top takeaways, but I do think that there is something to be said. Otega, just how he kind of walked into that building and had a, this is my team kind of approach. You could just kind of tell that he has a new leadership role. We talked to him a little bit today. I'll share some of those quotes here just a little bit, but he kind of realized that he's a senior now, the only senior outside of Denzel Aberdeen on the roster. And he kind of like looked at himself in the mirror around his teammates and just kind of like, whoa, I'm the old man. Like I feel young. I don't feel like the old guy, but I am the old guy in this locker room, and this team is leaning on me to be that seasoned vet and the guy that, his experience has been there and done that. So it was cool to see him kind of embrace that and have that just kind of demeanor and approach. Obviously, this video with Pope and the Red Sox thing, there was some backlash that some fans saying that Pope was kind of throwing this kid under the bus and, oh, how dare you call him out in front of all of his friends. That was not the case at all. Being there and experiencing it in real time, the dad and the son were both just over the moon excited about the attention and, oh my gosh, the head coach at Kentucky is, giving me a brand new pair of white socks because I accidentally wore red socks to camp. Oh no, but like, holy crap, this is the coolest thing in the world. I'll be able to share this story for the rest of my life. Think of this story and how Brandon Garrison handed me a brand new pair of socks at camp to put on, and Mark Pope called me out for wearing red. Like that is a lifelong memory story that whether he was slightly embarrassed in the heat of the moment, who cares? He loved it. The dad thought nothing of it. It was a fun, lighthearted moment that Pope meant nothing by. So there's some pushback on that, but I just being there, I'm here to tell you that was not the case. Also, Braden Hawthorne, way taller in person than I think I kind of realize. And like, I know he was listed at 6'9", but you know how it is, Sean, where people are listed at, whatever, and you meet them in person. You're like, oh, I'm eye height, where I'm eye level to you right now. So you're definitely not 6'6" or whatever you're listed at. So sneaky size and length in Braden Hawthorne, Sean.
Yeah, I was looking at that a moment ago, and I was like, man, he looks a lot taller than what I thought, and I'm not even in
a lot
person.
leaner. Yeah. Let's call a spade a spade. Dude needs to eat a cheeseburger or 3, but he's long. We at least have that going for us.
he certainly is adding some length to the roster for sure, which automatically I think gives you a chance. But no, this is good footage and stuff of seeing the experiences at camp and the guys interacting. Mark Pope with a smile on his face, and we know how busy these guys are. But taking the time out of their schedules to get involved with the fans and this, like I said, this is a good team bonding thing across. To me, what it does is camp season is these guys hear about Kentucky, they see Kentucky, and then obviously Otega and BG and these guys, Trent, all they have an idea of what this is already like. They've lived it. But these new guys coming in from Florida, Alabama, and elsewhere, this is a chance to get together and be like, all right, so we've heard what it is to play at Kentucky, but this is what it's really about. These are guys and kids here in the first couple of weeks of it, or first couple of days of us being here that look up to us, and this is who we're playing for. And I think it's really cool to see this every single summer.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. Also very cool. Welcome back, Walker Horn. I thought that was kind of a cool little tidbit that was thrown in there, Sean. So didn't get to talk necessarily. We talked about the roster limit set at 15, Sean, but the way it's rolled out now is with the house settlement, you have a max of 15 roster spots. Doesn't matter if they're walk-ons, doesn't matter if they're scholarships. You can have 15 scholarships, 15 walk-on players. It does not matter in the NCAA's eyes. However, if you had a roster spot last year or had one promised to you before, you are grandfathered in with this house settlement. So guys like a Grant Derbyshire, like a Zach Tao, like a Walker Horn could technically return. I have not heard that. I've heard that Grant is not expected to come back. Don't know about Zach Tao, but I did hear through the grapevine from the beginning that Walker Horn kind of was angling for a return back to Kentucky if Kentucky wanted him back. And if he couldn't come back to Kentucky, he had a roster spot available anywhere he wanted to go, and they could then go above and beyond with their Scott. So if he wanted to go play for his dad at NKU, say for example, and he had Darren Horn had 15 scholarships already on roster, he could be a 16th to go above and beyond because he was grandfathered in under the last umbrella. But very fortunately, that's not the case. And Walker Horn was back and was interacting with the campers. No warning sign, no announcement that he was pulling his name out of the portal. Just showed up, and Brandon Garrison introduced him as a guy who does not miss in practice. And then Walker introduced Trent Noah as a movie expert and said that he has an app that he basically writes movie reviews all day long and has just become like a top end movie critic. So we got to, see Walker Horn just randomly walk onto campus again and, represent himself. Pretty cool. I'm glad Walk is back.
It's good to see. It's good to see Walker still around UK, and I've gotten to know Darren quite a bit over the last year or so with recruiting at some of our guys. So obviously I've had conversations about Walker. So it's cool to still see him around UK. I didn't expect that, and then when I see that he's still there, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. I like Walker.
I like Walker, and I also like Club Blue. But house settlement and the importance of NIL and true NIL, and Club Blue is going to be a big part of those efforts moving forward. Club Blue continuing to be the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money, 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support. When you sign up, choose your sport and support with Club Blue. There was a question from Happy Butters Blast. Help me understand, NIL collectives can no longer just hand out $1 million plus to guys, right? It has to be businesses with doing something for them worth the money they get, right? Yes, absolutely, positively, yes. That is now the case. Is we're going back to a traditional NIL where you do have to do name, image, and likeness in the truest sense to get the money. It's no longer going to be, hey, walked your dog and I get $1 million. Like there's an actual rhyme and reason to it now. So yes, and Kentucky is very, very excited about that. Also, another quick message from our friends at Optimal Living Services. They partner with clients to increase their awareness of issues and empowers them to develop the skills to manage these challenges. We believe that every individual has obstacles they will need to face, and that the services of our team provides will give hope to all of our clients. Every individual has the ability to grow from their problems, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, work, finance, or emotional struggles. We help clients learn their potential and join them in their journey. You can head to optimallivingservices.com to learn more about their services and meet their staff. You can also give them a call at 859-785-1030. Sean, you as a coach, big time announcement from the NCAA today. And just the game as we know it changing. College basketball, some big time rules coming into effect going into the 2025-2026 season. Asking your take on both of them as a coach, and what you like about them, what you don't like about them, what you would change. Number one, coaches challenges at any point in the game, including overtimes. And then there is also number two, modifications to the rule on continuous motion on field goal attempts. So we're getting a continuation rule, as we see in the NBA, that is coming to college basketball, and also a coach's challenge, where we're now you can challenge basically anything. And I'll get your take on it while I read up on some of the more specific things to throw in there afterward. But coaches challenges and continuation. Your thoughts on both?
Continuation, I'm a big fan. Like I'm a huge fan of continuation. If you're adding it at that level in the NBA, I think that you might as well just have it across all levels of basketball, because there's so many times that I feel like a player has already made a move and is already getting into their gather, their finish, and reward it. Like if you're able to power through the contact and finish it, just finish the play. So a big fan of that. When it comes to coach's challenge, obviously I feel like you got to be very strategic about when and what you're challenging. Obviously, you got to be aware of timeouts, and you also kind of got to be sure in a sense of what you're challenging, because you don't want to, obviously, in a situation like, use one of those and it fell, right? Because you just can't throw it at anything. So I think it's added something that as a coach that you're going to have to manage in a game, but more so like as a staff. And how quickly do these decisions have to be made to get that challenge? Like if you're on the fly in a game, does it have to be challenged immediately, Jack, or can you go back and challenge something that happened a possession or two before when there's a dead ball? Because that obviously impacts the decision of this too.
Yeah, I'll read the exact rule from the NCAA and kind of get your follow-up take on it. Changes include a coach's challenge at any point in the game to review out-of-bounds calls, basket interference / goaltending, and whether a secondary defender was in the restricted arc. The panel also approved in continuation. Other enhancement to help the flow of the game, focus on points of emphasis for officials in 2025-2026. These will include directives to address delay of game tactics, limit time spent at the monitor, improve game administration efficiency, and reduce physicality. Under the coach's challenge rule, teams must have a timeout to request an instant replay review challenge. If the instant replay review challenge is successful, teams will be allowed to have one additional video review challenge for the rest of the game, including overtime. If the first video review challenge is unsuccessful, the team loses the ability to challenge the rest of the game. Officials can initiate video reviews on basket interference, goaltending, and restricted arc plays in the last 2 minutes of the game and into overtime. Recent data shows these reviews cause minimal game interruptions. NCAA rules committee members think that coach's challenge will have a significant impact on the flow of the game. Officials cannot conduct a video review on out-of-bounds calls unless through a coach's challenge. The coach's challenge does not impact the officials' voluntary use of instant replay for timing mistakes, scoring errors, shot clock violations, 2-point versus 3-point field goal attempts, flagrant fouls, etc. So
I am a fan of it because it does allow you to have some decision making in what you want to do, right? Because we're going to see coaches use this, and where do they choose to throw this challenge in at some point? Like you're not not going to see this thing burned in the first half, right? And you're probably going to see this be something but every possession matters. So it'll be interesting to see how coaches navigate this in this new rule and how it comes into play in those early games, those exhibitions, to kind of see what, what this is actually, going to look like, and how Mark Pope is going to decide to do it. And what are those impactful calls? Like, is it a huge momentum swinging play that could go in your favor or work against someone else? So, it's going to be cool to follow. I'm a fan of it for sure. Now, when you were reading that, so like if the challenge isn't successful, do you lose a timeout in that case?
I believe so.
Okay, so that's where the timeout, you got to have it to even build a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect this to be a lot of late game stuff is where you get this coming into play, and how, I mean, think of the plays that Kentucky basketball have been involved in over the years where you wish you could have been able to challenge something that you could have got.
We'd be 40-0.
Be 40-0. You'd have had some. You could have gone back last year and probably looked at a lot of plays late that could have impacted games or a decision here and there. So I think that as a coach, you like having this flexibility to be able to do it and be able to use it when you want to. Mark Pope being who he is and the little things that he does that kind of adds things to the game, or you're taking possessions away. It'll be interesting to see what he can kind of cook up, if there's things that he can kind of navigate and figure out a way to make this. Obviously, what are the calls that happen in the game? They're never going to be the same, but I'm willing to bet that there's some strategic thing at play here for Mark Pope of when you use this and how you use it, that they'll figure it out.
I'm just counting down to our very first head-to-head battle between Mark Pope and Doug Shows, and Pope going up to Doug and just giving him a nice little, just nice little finger twirl, just looking at him right in the eye and saying, "Hey, Doug, why don't you go to the monitor, bud? We need to have a chat." Can't wait. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of both these rule changes. I think they've been mostly a consensus among college basketball fans.
Sure.
Like, these have been.
Are you the same on the continuation?
Yeah. And like, I know the college basketball traditionalists aren't going to like it, but if you're truly about getting these kids ready for the next level and preparing them for the next level, that's what they're going to be seeing for 82 games a year, the year after they leave. Like, it really doesn't benefit them in any way to, have such a drastic difference in those two things. So yeah, I am a big fan of it. I know it's going to be an adjustment, but it is better for the game. And I think most college basketball diehards that are also progressive in a lot of these things and saying, "Hey, let's keep this game moving forward. Let's, I'd rather continue a continuation play than continue 7,000 monitor reviews and extending a college basketball game to 4 hours." Like, those.
Well,
if we're going to pick and choose your battles, let's pick the right ones.
yeah, and continuation. I mean, when we rep our players and drill our players, we're playing through that first bump, we're playing through contact, and we're teaching you to finish through this. So, like, when that's the way these guys train, it's the way they're going to play as professionals at the next level. I think that any mirroring college basketball in the NBA, like, you want it to mirror, I think, as much as possible when it comes to not every little detail. Like, there's one thing that I would love to see is the advancing the basketball with a timeout late to get me to the hash. Like, I'd love to be able to set a side out in scoring range with 2.4 seconds, 2.5 seconds, and having to go the full length of the floor. Like, as a coach, those are the areas of the game that I would like that would be impactful. Do we see those at some point? Maybe in the men's game, but obviously we're still talking about a game and a sport that plays 2 20-minute halves when nobody else does. So, like, there's other things that need to be done.
We do have an update on that. They are going to change that.
There we
just
go.
Not now. And I don't know why. That was a really weird update with this. The official word from the NCAA. The committee recommended NCAA Division I conferences create a joint working group to provide feedback on the potential change from halves to quarters. The men's basketball rules committee would like to have feedback from the conferences by the next rule change year.
I teed it up for you right there.
Yeah. So everybody involved is acknowledging that it's stupid. Hey, we made it work perfectly fine in the women's game. Flawless. No complaints whatsoever. They've perfected the media timeouts. The pace
The
of play
bonus.
is they have perfected all of those things. And I don't know, the NBA has been doing it from the beginning.
No
Why
one
not?
and one. No one and one. It's
Why are we still doing this? So I appreciate that we got the update that says, hey, that's next on the list. We're watching it closely. This is the year that we're watching it closely. But I think last year should have been the one that we monitored it, and this upcoming season was the one that we transitioned. Makes no sense that we're watching it this year so we can transition into 2026, 2027.
and it's so impactful when you're talking about quarters and you're talking about the bonus situation and free throws that you get a block charge call that goes against you early. You get a loose ball foul going over the back, fighting for a rebound. There's 2 fouls, and then here, next thing you know, there's an actual traditional whistle that goes against you for a foul. You're at 4 fouls before the under 16. You're a couple of whistles away from just living at the free throw line the rest of the half, and that's the
free throw
problem.
contest the rest of the game. Yeah.
It flips it for you, and as a coach, you can manage things just completely, just differently. Like it's just instead of having to be, not as aggressive defensively or whatever you want to do because you're going to get one, I guess in a sense, bailed out with a foul that puts somebody at the free throw line. You don't have to change the way that you play for the final 10 minutes of the half. It's just to flip it. Like, all right, cool. That first 4 minutes was horrible. Let's navigate it for the next 6, and then let's play a fresh 10. Like that's what I like about the quarters and the bonus and no more 1-and-1s. It's all 2 shots. Like that's what I hope that we get to, and I think we will, because it just doesn't make sense why we're the only. Well, men's basketball is the only level of the game that does it this way. Everybody else has figured it out. We don't shoot 1-and-1s in high school anymore.
At least we got some type of clarification and like, hey, it's happening. Just give us a second. Like I'll at least take that some type of gratification that
I'll complain about it one more year.
Yeah.
So
We gotta complain about something.
As a coach, man, it's like, come on now. Like this whistle piling up on me. Don't cost me for the next 14 minutes.
Gives us something to complain about. I will never complain about our guy, Jimmy. Jimmy's watching. Jimmy, love you, buddy. We appreciate you.
I saw that. We love you too, Jimmy.
We'll be stopping by soon. We'll do another show here at the shop here very, very shortly, and I'm very, very much looking forward to it because Jimmy's my guy. Otega Oweh Day. We'll kind of start wrapping this thing up. Otega, we got to see him for the first time talking in blue and white as a senior, and I talked a little bit earlier about how he kind of embraced that veteran role, and you could kind of tell that he had that kind of, I know that I'm the lead voice here. There's some questions about like how you're now stepping into Lamont Butler's kind of leadership role from a year ago. How are you two different? And Otega talked a lot about like, I'm much more intense. Like I'm very proud of how intense I am and how it's, a little bit different than most. So Otega ready to take over the senior veteran role. Very excited for that. A lot of talk about his hair today. I was not expecting an Otega Oweh haircut conversation, but it kind of turned into a pretty extensive one. I asked about, so we got to address the elephant in the room. You announced your return to Kentucky. You have long hair, but we know as of April 21st, when Alvin Brooks III posted on Twitter a picture of you with your hair buzzed off. So we know you went through the entire draft process. We watched you with our own 2 eyes during the draft combine with a buzz cut, but magically on May 28th at the withdrawal deadline, you got dreadlocks again. What's up, bro? What happened? What's the case? And he said, yes, I pre-recorded it. The video guy that I was close with is no longer there. He knew he was leaving. So he wanted to get one last kind of video recorded with me. So yes, I pre-recorded the video, and just as a just in case kind of deal. If I ended up coming back, I just wanted to have the video handy. And he's like, very fortunately, I did, because I did need it handy. And I said, so you filmed a goodbye one then, right? He's like, nah, I didn't film a goodbye one. So he kind of, and then he talked later, like, I knew a couple days beforehand that I was going to come back, and I kind of added the drama to it, especially with like Pope. Pope, I don't know if you saw that video of Pope talking to him at the father son camp. Otega kind of interviews him about the decision to come back, and how, what was your reaction to me telling you that I was coming back? And Pope said that he was on an airplane, and it was like, how am I getting a phone call right now from Otega without the plane crashing and without the pilot throwing me off the plane for talking on the phone? And kind of like said, hey, I'm on the phone, hold that thought please, I'll call you back when I land. They land, he calls, says, I'm coming back. Mark says that he like starts crying, and it's kind of an emotional, touching moment for the both of them. Otega said today, he was like, yeah, I knew like 3 or 4 days before that I was coming back. I just kind of wanted to add some drama, add some some make Pope tense a little bit. So it was very cool to just kind of have him clarify and just say, I was grateful for the process, grateful for what I learned from the process. I could have gone to the draft, I could have been drafted, I know I would have been drafted, but there was there was something calling me back, and it is unfinished business. A lot of talk about winning a national championship. He said all of the right things that you would want your senior leader, the anchor of your roster, to say going into a very important summer.
Yeah, and he got to sit back and kind of watch this roster be pieced together, right, while still having a cemented spot in its rotation. So he got to watch each guy be added, each transfer be added, incoming freshmen, and kind of take a look at this thing and what it's going to look like. Kind of similar to what Jackson Robinson had a year ago as well, waiting to the very end to kind of see what it looked like and where he would fit. And Otega obviously knew where he fit, and it's just about what can this roster do, and he got to see firsthand like each piece together. And now it is what it is, and Otega's back to lead the charge. This is a new year for Otega, new haircut, new look, hopefully a different result too, in what we see at the end.
Yeah, he talked a lot about that. He also talked very excited to not have to go up against Mo Diabate in the SEC. That was kind of one of the bigger conversations, that he hated having to guard Mo, hated that Mo guarded him. I asked him, I was like, hey, does Mo ever talk trash about him kind of being the reason why your double-digit scoring streak ended? Like, does he talk trash? I feel like he would. He said, no, not yet, but I know it's coming. So excited to have Mo on our side for a change. Otega is very excited, and said, talking about the returning talent, the conversation that we had several weeks back, where Mark Pope said that you take your biggest jumps under Mark Pope in year 2, just learning the system, not having to the read and react stuff, being able to just be instinctive about it instead of worrying about learning the system. He talked about himself being a part of that, but also just the importance of Trent Noah and Colin Chandler and Brandon Garrison, and just how excited he is for those guys to step in and take massive jumps. He's expecting a lot out of those 3 as well.
Yeah, you're a veteran in this system in year 2. Year 1, you're learning it, like you said, the read and react, concepts of what you're doing offensively. But when you get to year 2, Jack, it's just such natural movement and what you're wanting to do, playing in space, making reads, and I have full confidence that Otega Oweh is going to make a big jump when it comes to that area of his game. BG stepping out, knocking down shots more consistently, and Colin and Trent and all these guys just being more comfortable with what they're doing offensively. I think year 2 is a big deal in Mark Pope's system, because we know it's a difficult system to pick up on, but once you get it, it's just so naturally flowing, and I think that they're going to have an easier time with it in year 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So very fun week, very weird week with Vince leaving and the house settlement getting finalized and all that stuff, but for the most part, more good than bad, especially as it relates to men's basketball, especially seeing some familiar faces back and new faces in to get this 2025-2026 season officially rolling. We'll be hearing early week basically now through late July, we're going to be getting these weekly press conferences with these players. So we'll have something to talk about each week. I am going to Colorado Springs on Sunday. They're leaving Saturday for the event to start Sunday, where Mark Pope will be there, joined by none other than Malachi Moreno and Jasper Johnson to try to make the U19 Team USA a team to compete in the FIBA World Cup. So really cool opportunity for Pope, really cool opportunity for the two in-state kids, and ton of 2026 recruits that Kentucky's going after, and just unbelievably massive recruiting opportunity for Pope to be out there and get his hands on these guys. Just real quick before we wrap up, Sean, your thoughts on that? Just to hit, the chance to coach Jasper and Malachi in that type of competitive setting, but also kind of get a recruiting advantage by coaching these guys in person.
Yeah, I think it's a cool thing that you get to experience that with two of your guys that you're going to go to battle with, right? Like it's you get to go out there and live that experience and get to go through it with them and share those experiences together. And you also get to kind of show the Kentucky brand in your face on a different platform, on a national platform with Team USA, and an opportunity there. So anytime you get a chance to do that, and it's also cool that two local guys are getting that opportunity, two Lexington area kids, Georgetown area kids that are getting that opportunity as well, along with the UK head coach. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. So we'll be sharing an update from there after the fact. While I'm there, we'll be pumping out a lot of stuff from on the YouTube channel. So make sure you're following along with that. Make sure you're following along with our work. For me, Jack Pilgrim, KSR on the website, KentuckySportsRadio.com, KS Board. Make sure you go subscribe there. Sean, where can fans find your work?
You can follow me at _Coach S. Smith.
Summer games, what we got going on in the coaching world for you?
Yeah, we're finished for the next couple of days. We've had 2 dates so far, and we're back in action Saturday, and then we've got 1 date next week at St. X, and then we wrap up with what was the Collins tournament is now at Lexington Catholic. It's in the Lexington area now, Lexington and Georgetown. So the NCAA live event will be coming up not this weekend but next weekend, and then we're off for dead period. So
well,
there it is.
Unfortunately, that Shelbyville event was 2 minutes from my house, so now I hate that it's gone. But oh well, it is what it is. For Jack Pilgrim, for Sean Smith, for Steven behind the camera, appreciate everything he does and appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you for tuning in, making us part of your evening. We will see you next time. Go Cats.